If you're a maintenance supervisor for a commercial property, you've had to deal with everything from leaky faucets to flickering light bulbs. But nothing's worse than that ancient boiler that's lived in the building since the day it was built, 50 years ago. It's enough to make anyone lose their cool. That's where Grainger comes in. With industrial-grade products and dependable fast delivery, Grainger can help with any challenge, from worn-out components to everyday necessities. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubblegum.
And we're back, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. Now, this is interesting. It's April 1st, and I'm looking at the people that are lining up in the chat room already, and I'm looking at Sergeant Booker, Mike John Pasqua, Simone says, the Alaskan Kaiser, and one viewer. And in the chat room, the Alaskan said, this better not be an April Fool's joke tonight. And I thought, oh, come on, do I want to do that, or do I? No, I don't want to do that, until I started typing on the keyboard. And then the keyboard wouldn't work. And that was right after the Alaskan said that. And I thought, okay, my God, the keyboard batteries are out. They're dead. So luckily, right over there in that other bag, I had 2 fresh batteries. So in the meantime, I'm a minute late. I'm slamming batteries into my keyboard right here, and I'm thinking, oh, those guys are thinking in the chat room, I really did try to pull an April Fool's joke on them. No, I didn't. And the reason I was late is because I guess the keyboard pulled an April Fool's joke on me by going out. Hey, thanks, equipment. Really appreciate that. Tonight is going to be the same, but not the same. As a matter of fact, look at this. Here are the 2 culprits right here. Now, you can listen to the show right now on shrmedia.com. As a matter of fact, if you happen to be on shrmedia.com, if you happen to be on Spreaker right now, if you would, pretty please share the show. Sharing is caring as far as I'm concerned. Now, if you also happen to be watching the show on the SHR Media YouTube channel or the SHR Media Facebook page on YouTube and Facebook, please share and share alike. And make sure that it gets, if you would, pretty please, I'm asking you, pretty please, to share the show all over. Tonight we're going to have Alan Thomas on. I have had him on any number of times, but because I'm gaining listeners left and right, there are, when Alan Thomas gets here, I'm going to have him kind of reintroduce himself, if you will. And for those who just tuned in, I recently made I made number 18 in the top 75 late night talk show podcasts you must follow in 2021. And I'm really happy about that. I've gotten a whole bunch more viewers, and I'm absolutely ecstatic. Let me see if I can get Alan on the phone. Before we get into the whole thing of UFOs, all that sort of thing, I wanted to do what I customarily do, and because there are some stories that need to go out there, and we'll start with this.
The Bloviating Zeppelins HeyJackass.com Chicago Death Toll Update. Courtesy of Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot.
And that's right. You can get all these stats at HeyJackass.com. HeyJackass.com, illustrating Chicago values. March to date versus 2020. Shot and killed 46, up 84%. Shot and wounded 256, up 59% from 2020. Total shot 302, up 61%. Total homicides 48, up 50%. Now for the week in progress, March 28th to April 3rd, shot and killed 6, shot and wounded 28, total shot 34, total homicide 7. Year to date, shot and killed 34, shot and wounded 602, total shot. Year to date, 736, total homicides 141. The Chicago shot clock shows that someone is injured every 15 minutes. Every 2 minutes and 30 seconds. And also that people are killed. One person is killed in Chicago every 15 minutes and 32 seconds. Wow. That's why you listen to me here. As I've said before, there's a reason that I play this.
The Bloviating Zeppelins HeyJackass.com Chicago Death Toll Update. Courtesy of Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot.
And a standard show of mine would not be complete without...
It's time for Happy Stories and Good Times.
Here's one. This just came out. I say this all too frequently. But this came out 3 days ago. This is from the New York Post. This is a court win. Professor who refused school order on transgender students' pronouns wins in court. So what this means is an Ohio college professor who resisted his school's orders to go along with transgender students' preferred pronouns was fired. Well, he won his First Amendment case before a federal appeals court in a unanimous ruling. The 6th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals said Shawnee State University violated Professor Nicholas Merriweather's rights of free speech and free exercise of religion by punishing him for resisting school rules that forced him to address students in the terms of their choosing, which may or may not be completely, totally capricious and arbitrary. That's my saying that. Meanwhile, Merriweather, a philosophy professor and a devout Christian, sued Shawnee State, claiming that its mandate to use terms that conflict with biology, imagine that, infringed on his religious belief that gender is fixed from the moment of conception. The court's decision, written by a judge appointed to the bench by President Trump and issued Friday, upheld Merriweather's argument. And it goes like this. The First Amendment interests are especially strong here because Merriweather's speech also relates to his core religious and philosophical beliefs, Judge Amul Thapar wrote in a 32-page decision. As far as I'm concerned, that's a happy story. This is another happy story which I may or may not have mentioned before because there's so many to go.
If you're a facilities manager at a university, you know students rely on the cafeteria for breakfast, lunch, dinner, and the occasional late-night snack. So when a dishwasher breaks down and dirty plates pile up, the mess hall can turn messy in the blink of an eye. Enter Grainger. With over 1 million industrial-grade products and fast delivery, the product you need now is never far away. So you can turn that dishwasher back into a lean, clean washing machine. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Along, and I like, if I can, to start out the show with happy stories. All is not lost, folks. Just saying, hashtag, just saying, all is not lost. Major U.S. sports leagues lost over $14 billion in the year of 2020. I find that absolutely wonderful. Oh, and also good news, Dr. Fauci's House of Cards happens to be crashing.
Administration that they say it will make its decisions based on science. What's the science behind not saying it's safe for people who have been vaccinated, received 2 doses, to travel?
Okay, this is CNN. This is a CNN guy actually bracing Dr. Fauci with a real question. Probably written by an actual adult.
You know, that's a very good question, John. And the CDC is carefully heading in that direction. You know, when Dr. Walensky made the announcement a day or two ago about the fact that when you have a couple of people, 2 or 3 or more people in a family setting, both of whom are vaccinated, even if it's someone from a friend that doesn't have to be a member of the family, that was the first in a multi-step process that they are going to be rolling out. They're being careful, understandably. They want to get science. They want to get data. And then when you don't have the data and you don't have the actual evidence, then you've got to make a judgment call. And I think that's what you're going to be seeing in the next weeks. You're going to...
Okay, stop. That's why this is important. Did you just hear what Dr. Fauci said? He was pressed, and he admits, this is why this is a happy story, because you knew this crap all along. Dr. Fauci says, when you don't have the data and you don't have the actual evidence, you've got to make a judgment call. To me, I hope, a thinking human being, well, then when have you ever had the data and the actual evidence, and that calls into question essentially everything as far as I am concerned? Dr. Fauci saying he doesn't have all the evidence. Sorry, Dr. Fauci, it's so sorry. Here's another happy story. Grammy ratings fall to all-time low, setting off alarms for the Oscars, because it's not impossible the Oscars may also have the worst ratings in the history of history. Then this, I find, this is from Beezy's House of Schadenfreude. Exclusive, mystery solved. This veteran running for his seat made Representative Benny Thompson vote no on H.R. 1. By the way, H.R. 1 is that Democrat's own bill that he sponsored. In early March, a mystery unfolded in Washington, D.C. with a powerful long-term U.S. congressman who voted against his own high-profile voting rights bill, and hardly anyone in the media investigated why that would have happened. Here's the likely motivation that really would have frightened this guy, Democrat Benny Thompson. I came closer than anybody else ever has in his 28 years of office of beating him in 2020, and I believe that influenced Thompson's vote on H.R. 1, and I am running against him. Hello? Note, I'm primarying your ass. I'm running against him because Mississippi seats change. Brian Flowers, a naval veteran who served from 1998 to 2008, and that forced longtime Democrat Brian Thompson was the lone no vote on his own bill. Does anyone besides me find that a happy story? And that's just so delicious. Speaking of good times and good stories, Representative Andrew Clyde's big idea: restore the Second Amendment and eliminate all taxes on firearms. Georgia GOP Representative Andrew Clyde. Clyde. Does that name sound familiar? By the way, Clyde is just fine. Andrew Clyde brings to Congress a deep understanding of federal firearms law. As a licensed gun store owner for the last 30 years, Clyde's real-world experience has convinced him federal government regulations have gone way too far by infringing on the Second Amendment. The Navy combat veteran now wants to lead the charge in Congress on restoring gun rights and rolling back century-old laws that tax firearms. Now, there are not a specific series of bills crafted yet, but when everyone is taking the, oh, this is terrible, I'm simply reading these things to you to let you know, to illustrate that all is not lost. There are people in Congress that are cognizant of what's going on, of the rights that are lost, and they're attempting to do something about that right now. Here's another happy story. This is from Breitbart. Six establishment Republicans face 3 threats: redistricting, Democrats, and Trump. This, likewise, is a happy story. By the way, that's including the listing of the 6 Republicans who generally tend to vote with Democrats facing redistricting are Adam Kinzinger, Anthony Gonzalez, Fred Upton, John Katko, Peter Mejia, and David Valadao. I couldn't be happier about any of that stuff. Then Ron DeSantis. You know, I tell you what, I know, you guys know that I'm going to move. I'm in the process of going to move, seriously. And probably in the next 2 weeks, I won't be here doing the show for maybe a week, maybe 2 weeks. And the reason for that is that I'm going to another state to look at houses and contact a realtor. I'm not thinking about Florida, however, even though the taxes would certainly be advantageous, but I can't take the heat. Literally, I can't take the heat, and I can't take the humidity. Governor Ron DeSantis said and slammed the door on Democrats' critical race theory.
Florida civics curriculum will incorporate foundational concepts with the best materials, and it will expressly exclude unsanctioned narratives like critical race theory and other unsubstantiated theories.
Unsubstantiated, which they are.
Let me be clear, there's no room in our classrooms for things like critical race theory. Teaching kids to hate their country and to hate each other is not worth 1 red cent of taxpayer money.
Perfect. I consider that definitely a most happy kind of thing. Then there was another story. You know, remember Obama said, those jobs are leaving. Those jobs are leaving. They're never coming back. Then they came back under Trump. Then Ford, once Trump left, said, we're going to move from Ohio to Mexico. Except the UAW rejects Ford's plan to build a new vehicle assembly plant in Mexico instead of Ohio. The United Auto Workers Union said the Ford Motor Company's plan to build a new vehicle in Mexico instead of Ohio might be a violation of the auto manufacturer's contractual commitments. The reason this is a happy story is you're having people actually stand up. Stand up. And as far as I'm concerned, that's a positive thing, and that's a happy thing. Alan Thomas, do you happen to be there, sir?
I sure am. Loving the happy story.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. So, folks, for the rest of tonight, let me turn this on. The phone lines are open. And if you happen to be watching on the SHR Media YouTube channel or the SHR Media Facebook page, you'll see that at the bottom is scrolling the phone number. And I will put this in the SHR Media chat shortly. So if anybody wants to call, Alan and I are going to be talking about a host of issues. And I've brought a ton of stuff to talk about tonight because I always have more than we can possibly discuss. But that said, it'll generally be about UFOs and about the paranormal, perhaps Bigfoot, Sasquatch, and anything unexplained. Now, tonight I put this show and promoted it in a bunch of different groups. I'm curious if anybody's going to listen tonight and or call in. The number, if you wish to call in, is 575. By the way, 575, if anybody wasn't aware, is the area code for Roswell, New Mexico, which I think that's just kind of weird. But if you want to call in, the number is 575-208-4481. 575-208-4481. 575-208-4481. And you're welcome to call in. So, with Alan Thomas, there may be some people who are not familiar with you, sir. And I have to tell this story because I felt like such an asshole when this happened. I met Alan Thomas in 2007, I think, at a paranormal conference that occurred in a motel in Sacramento. He was there with Jeffrey Gonzalez doing the paranormal show that he and Alan used to do. Jeffrey Gonzalez still does his paranormal show. Met Alan, met Jeffrey Gonzalez, great people, and it kind of took off from there. I invited Alan on the show, and we corresponded back and forth a bit. And this was, the first time I've had Alan on probably 12, 13, 14 times by now. And the first time, though, that I had you on was mid-2017. And I'm kind of all ready to go, and Alan's not there. I call him, and he's not there. And I call him again, and he's not there. Well, that taught me also, make sure you have stuff ready to talk about in case something like this happens. But I thought the next day I thought, Alan swore to me that he's going to be there, and I'm going to have to give Alan a piece of my mind. Until I found out that the reason Alan wasn't there is because he had a heart attack. And if there was ever anyone that felt like an asshole about that, that was me. Anyway, Alan, 4 years later, I always have to apologize for that, for even thinking something like that. Yeah. But can you tell people who have not heard you before or don't know anything about you a little bit about your background? And I'm thinking of the two events that occurred that I think primarily got you involved in the paranormal and your ability to just kind of see and hear and feel things.
Yeah. Well, for me, it all started in 1987, and I was bear hunting / deer hunting at bear tags, and we got up on the 9th day of being out there. We were up really early before the sun came up, and we had planned the day before to sit in a place where we weren't sure if there was deer, but we were pretty sure, you know what I mean? Like we didn't know for sure, but after walking around 9 days around there, only place left was, high up in the granite. So that's where we went. And I seen a bear. It was digging in the bushes, and I got all excited. I had my Weatherby 300 Magnum Mark V just for it. And I was ready to go, and it stood up. And it was a big man. It was like, oh, my God, what is he doing up there? We didn't see him. It's a dead-end road. We've been camping on this road 9 days. How did he do that? And I watched him for 2 hours as he walked down towards us, like 3 or 4 steps at a time, and then stopping for anywhere from 5 minutes to 15 minutes, just solid, standing there like a statue. Well, he took off running when I made a mistake and made noise. He took off running. I freaked out. I didn't go to the mountains again for like 6 years. Scared me to death. Monsters aren't supposed to be out there. This thing was like 12 feet tall, 6 feet wide. It was huge. And so I just forgot about it, and I got on with life, and no more deer hunting, no more bear hunting, no more camping.
I can see that.
And about a few years later, I was working in the casino industry. My main job was marketing director, but I would at the time I was acting food and beverage director, network administrator, and marketing director. And I went in for the heart thing, right? Went in for the heart thing. They blocked the artery in the leg, and 8 days later I was losing my leg. They did a surgery. They told me I might not have a leg. As they were putting me out, like I might not have a leg when you wake up, great words to tell somebody as they're going out, And then I had an experience, like I went to, I think, heaven, and it was a beautiful place. I could describe a little bit. It was a valley. It had golden grains, like wheat growing, and it was all gold. There was some giant oak trees that were dotting the landscape. They didn't have shadows under them. And there was a mountain range with snow caps, and it was beautiful looking. I thought, man, I'm going to go, one of these days, I'm going to go look at that mountain. And as fast as I thought it, I was standing in the mountains, and I was breathing the most beautiful smelling mountains I ever smelled. It was 50 times more beautiful smelling than the average mountain smell that I used to smell in Yosemite and stuff. And as I'm breathing in and I'm turning around very slowly, just taking everything in, as I get a 180, I'm seeing the valley I was standing in, and it came to my mind that maybe there was somebody waiting for me, and I really effed up, and I shouldn't have did whatever I did, whatever it was, like got me there, and I don't know how to get back. Maybe I shouldn't have left. As soon as I thought that I shouldn't have left, I was back in the valley, and there was two guys waiting for me. And they told me, one of them spoke into my mind. They were light beings. I could like faintly see they were wearing tunics, kind of like warriors, like Roman soldier warrior type clothes.
Right.
But I could barely see it because of how bright they were. And he spoke in my mind, and he said, "Are you done?" And then I was feeling guilty, and I thought, oh, man, I didn't say anything. I'm like, oh, man, am I done? I don't know, I don't know what I did. I don't know. And he says it again, are you done? It's like, oh, man, I don't know what to say. And he says, what about your kids? What about your wife? And I didn't answer him. I just thought about, home, the kids, the wife, and all of a sudden it felt like I got sucked up by a big vacuum, and in a split of a second, I flew through the universe from wherever I was and slammed into my body, opened my eyes. The doctor had his face in my face. It was the anesthesiologist, and he was yelling, "Stay with us, stay with us." I closed my eyes, and I woke up in recovery, and they told me they saved the leg. And then after that is when I couldn't work anymore. They disabled me. I started looking for people that I thought somebody else had to see a Bigfoot, and I'm going to find out, and I'll have all the time in the world. I'm going to find out. And that's when I found Jeff and some other guys, and we formed a team. We started doing the radio show. But when we went out, I realized that I could sense them, that I knew they were there. I knew if they were in a bad mood. I knew if they were in a good mood. I knew a lot about stuff. I had no idea what I was doing, and I've been developing that ever since. That I don't know what you call it, really.
A sense, an ability to perceive things that maybe other people can't perceive. We're going to go on a break. Come back in about 2 minutes. We're going to get into, and by the way, if anybody wants to call, the phone line is open, 575-208-4481, 575-208-4481, and continue speaking with Alan Thomas. I will relate a Sasquatch sighting that I had, and then I will relate 3 UFO sightings that I had, and we'll ask Alan Thomas about that. And if you wish to weigh in about anything that you happen to have seen, 575-208-4481. We'll be right back after this.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Hey, are you guys listening? This is Shannon from Right Way with Shannon and Mike in the AM on SHR Media. I know you've been wondering where we are and what's been going on. Well, folks, that's right. We're back. So please join us 7 to 9 a.m. Monday through Thursday on SHR Media, on Spreaker, iHeartRadio, and Spotify, and Facebook Live at 11 a.m. on Right Way with Shannon and Mike in the AM at Facebook. You don't want to miss a minute. We've got lots of guests, lots of segments, and lots of interesting things. And let's face it, there's nowhere for you to go, so you might as well tune in. Again, Right Way with Shannon and Mike in the AM. We're back live on the air on SHR Media, 7 to 9 a.m. Monday through Thursday, audio and Facebook Live, audio and video. Yes, we are going to do video. Facebook Live, Right Way with Shannon and Mike in the AM. Hope to see you soon.
Unleashed Jeremy Hansen, the most explosive pro-American podcast on the planet. Pro-MAGA, pro-Trump, pro-conservative. Come join the resistance. Fight for what really matters in America. 5 p.m. Central on UJHLive.com, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, Pandora, or MAGAbook.com. Come join the resistance and fight for America. Unleashed Jeremy Hansen.
Do you value yourself, your family, your friends? Want to know more about how to survive, thrive, and stay alive in these dynamic times? Listen to Around the Campfire with Kate, Thursday nights and Sunday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Central, only on PSN TV. That's Around the Campfire with Kate. News that nobody in the MSM wants to report. Remember, train hard, train smart to survive, thrive, and stay alive.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
And ladies and gentlemen, we are back. I'm BZ, the bloviating Zeppelin. You're in the Saloon. This is BZ's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show. Every Tuesday and Thursday night, right here at shrmedia.com. 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 p.m. Eastern, 10 p.m. Central. Tonight, we're lucky enough to have Alan Thomas on the teleolophone, who we've been speaking to. I wanted to get this in, but I couldn't at the moment. Alan was talking about how he had seen a Bigfoot, and he said it was roughly, and Alan, let me know if I get this right, you said it was about 12 feet tall and about 6 feet wide.
Yep.
Okay.
That's how big he was.
Let me give this to you as a reference because I just happen to know these strange little details that are foobling around in my brain housing group. If you happen to see a locomotive engine on a railroad track, the top of the cab of a locomotive engine is 15 feet above the rail. So if you can imagine that's the height of a locomotive, then 3 feet below that, that essentially means that Sasquatch could have looked in through the windows in the cab of a locomotive. That's about how tall that is. And I also think, if I'm not mistaken, we have somebody on the line who called in. I don't know who this is, but for the individual who called in, please let us know who you are, and do you have any questions for myself or Alan?
Hi, BZ. This is Simone.
Hi, Simone.
Hi, Simone.
Hi, and hi, Alan. Hey, I was kind of wondering what you guys' thoughts were on, there's a number of different supernatural or paranormal or different kinds of things like ghosts or aliens or Sasquatch or, different categories, cryptids. Do you think it's possible that if you see one of those things, like a ghost or cryptid or whatever, that it opens up your psyche to see more of those different categories? Or do you think that you're just kind of made that way and and it's just time for you to open up your mind.
Well, the Bigfoot, when people, this is kind of a weird thing that I, from reading stories and then talking to people that had encounters with them and seen them, and also people I know, that seen them when we were out. I'm not sure about UFOs, but for Bigfoot, once you see them and you know for sure, you tend to see them again. It's almost like no matter where you are, too, you could be in another state. It seems like they know that you know, and they'll let you see them again.
So it's almost like a motorcycle, right? If you see a motorcycle, all of a sudden you see the rest of the motorcycles.
Yeah, I don't know. All I know is that some people want to see them really bad, and they never see them, and they'll go with me. We'll go to places where there's lots of them, and they won't see them. And then one day it'll step out and let them see them. And then after that, then they see them everywhere. Wherever we go, they'll start hearing them. They'll encounter them. If they don't see them, they'll still know the Bigfoot's there, because it'll let them know, like throwing things at them, or growling, grunting, knocking, clacking the rocks together. I mean, immediately you're now an experiencer, it seems, once you see one.
Well, because the reason why I ask is I was born and raised in the Fresno area, and when I was 12 years old, I had an experience. It was pretty scary, but it wasn't with a Sasquatch. It was more with an alien. And then as I grew up, then I started having experiences with ghosts, and it's like I don't seek any of those experiences, but they just happen to me, and some of them are scary and some of them not so much. But the Sasquatch I haven't seen yet, and that's why I was asking. If I wasn't looking for any of those experiences, but I've had them. I've had the UFO, I've had the ghosts, I've had, I think I've had some sort of angelic visit. And so I guess what I'm saying is that it's just a matter of time before I see my Sasquatch.
Well, I do know on the alien side of it, some of the friends I go out with researching, they never seen a Bigfoot, but they've been abducted by aliens and, have alien experiences, and also the supernatural stuff, shadow beings and stuff. And, well, after, talking to them, it usually started when they were a little kid. And then if you talk to the family, it was actually generational. It might skip a generation, but the family always had things like that, which is interesting.
Well, now that you mention that, my grandmother was born and raised in Mexico City, and she told us stories when she was hiking through the desert, trying to make her way to the border with her daughter, my mom, that they were lost, and they were traveling at night because it wasn't as hot, and they were totally lost. And then out of no place, there was a Mexican cowboy, a vaquero, and he just appeared out of nowhere, and he chastised her and said, "What are you doing out here in the desert?" And she said, "I'm just, I'm lost. I'm trying to get to a town." And so he pointed in the direction that she needed to go and told her that a car would be on its way to pick her up, and that she would be sleeping in the jail of that community, that it was a safe place. And he pointed her off in the direction, and she said, "Okay." And she looked in the direction that he pointed her, and she turned around to say thank you, and he was gone. And this was a guy on a horse.
Wow.
So she she traveled to the direction where he said, and then there was a road, which she never would have found on her own. And sure enough, a vehicle came by and picked her and my mom up, and they took her to the town, and she spent the night in the jail where it was safe. So the thing of it skipping a generation, I think the force is with my family somehow.
I think so. That sounds like it.
Alan, let me ask you a question.
Mm-hmm.
I think I've asked you this before, but it seems as if an individual has experienced something one time, depending on what category that is. Maybe somebody's seen a Bigfoot or a Sasquatch. Maybe somebody has had a UFO experience. Maybe somebody has had a paranormal experience. Once experienced, and you indicated that generally those things kind of tend to be when you're younger, and then Simone, you said that your first experience was when you were 12, when you were younger. Once an experience occurs kind of in this arena, or a series of arenas, it seems as though that makes you more susceptible to either seeing or experiencing more of those things, or being, what's the word I'm looking for? Receptive. Maybe more receptive to having more experiences of a like kind. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, it totally does. And usually, like with those things, it is from when you're a kid, and it could go back generations. Like your whole family could be susceptible. You know what I mean? And you could be a total non-believer. You don't ask, most of the time, nobody asks for these things of any kind, and it just happens. And then once they know, then forever after that, things happen. Sometimes really a lot. You know, there'll be a time frame where a lot of things happen, and then there'll be a downtime where nothing really happens, and then you have like, you'll see something and days will go by, and then you'll have days where it's almost every day for a while, and it just will go off and on like that your whole life.
Does that sort of make sense to you, Simone? Is that kind of what has happened to you?
Yeah, it kind of has. I think when you're young, I mean, I never told my parents what I saw. We never had a discussion like this. I mean, who would you tell, right? And as I had different experiences growing up, I mean, I worked as a death investigator for a county in California, and I had experiences with what I believe were ghosts, and then I wasn't afraid because, when you're in a morgue, you expect that to happen, right? I mean, it seemed kind of a normal environment, and they never followed me home. I just had my experiences with them. But then when I was on my own on vacation in a hotel and something like that would happen, it would scare the crap out of me because I guess that didn't seem like a normal place for that to happen. So that's when I started realizing it wasn't the place, it was me.
Okay.
Right.
Let me ask both of you this then, because this question just popped into my wheelhouse right now. If an individual has an experience or sees something in one particular venue, let's say, I don't know, UFOs, or they have a separate, say, a paranormal experience, or there's something else that occurs, maybe they see Bigfoot, a Sasquatch, does that make them susceptible to all sorts of unexplained things like that? Or if somebody sees, I don't know, somebody sees a UFO, pretty much they may be sensitive towards seeing UFOs again and again. Or if somebody sees one thing, does it just cover automatically all the bases? Now you're open, you're sensitive, you're receptive to all sorts of things that you were not before.
Well, for me, I wish I knew. That's why I still investigate.
Okay.
And ask questions like that. But that's how I learned, though, that once people, like, they were total not believers, they make fun of people that, have stories of any kind that's paranormal or unusual. And then all of a sudden, without asking for it or wanting it, they have an experience. and then it blows their whole paradigm, and then they have more, you know, and then they almost become like me. It becomes a lifetime of trying to figure out why, you know, why me type thing.
I understand why it's you. Simone, since you're here calling, have your experiences been primarily with one single thing? I think you said you saw, when you were 12, you saw some kind of an alien. If you've seen anything since, boy, this is hard to say. If you've seen anything since, has it been only with aliens or UFOs, or has it expanded to the paranormal? Or since you first saw that at age 12, is there anything else?
So when I was 12, I was in the back.
Okay, go ahead.
The restroom in the house,
Uh-huh.
and I always turned on the light, which irritated my brother who slept in the next room. But for some reason, I woke up and it was super quiet, like when it snows, that kind of quiet, that preternatural, super quiet.
Right.
And so I was trying to be really quiet because it was so quiet, and I reached around the doorway.
Can you hold on 1 second? I have a second person who called in, who's a caller. And second caller, I don't know who you are, but could you do me a... This is how I know it's a real talk show. Caller, second caller just called in. Can you turn your radio down, please? Because we're getting feedback on that. And second caller, I know that you're there. And when Simone is done, I will be going directly to you. So I see you, I acknowledge you, and Simone, please continue.
So I flicked on the light in the bathroom, and standing in front of me was this creature, and I didn't see all of it. I mean, I was so shocked. It was a gray alien. I mean, I was 12. You know, I'm 65 now, so that was a lot of years ago. That was before TV and gray aliens and stuff like that. And I looked at his mouth, and his mouth made an O. I'm sure just like my mouth made an O, like an oh shit. And he had like a thin material, like silver, almost like aluminum, but not quite as shiny. And he had like a Nehru collar, and I didn't see his hands. I just looked all the way down, and he had like this full bodysuit on. And by the time I looked back up, I noticed his ears were like more like the way a chicken has ears, if you've ever seen like a little hole, really, kind of.
Right. And
the nose was flat with two holes. And I turned one way and jumped on my brother who was asleep in bed, and I heard it scuttle the other way. And I grabbed my brother and shook him and said, "Wake up, wake up, wake up!" And I was screaming. And the next thing I know, it's morning, and I wake up. So I have no idea if I was abducted, if it was coming to get me again. I have no idea about any of that. But that's my one and only alien experience that I recall. And since that time, mostly I've had ghost experiences.
Okay.
So I don't know if that answers your question, but
okay. So
and they're not even ghosts that I know.
Okay, so you are a little bit ranging the spectrum.
Yeah.
You've seen an alien. Now, the other question is, have you seen a UFO?
Not that I recall.
Okay. All right. And you've been involved, apparently, with the paranormal in some fashion?
Accidentally. I mean, I was a death investigator, and so I was picking up dead people all the time, but, you know, it was my job.
Okay.
And so I had some experiences with them. I had somebody, one time I worked the graveyard shift, no pun intended.
Yes.
And I was done with my shift at like 3 a.m. So I'm walking out to my car. I took a shortcut through the morgue, said hi to the techs, and I'm walking out to my car. And this is as an adult. I want to say I'm like 48, 49, 50 years old at that point. And I'm walking out to my car, and I heard footsteps behind me. And they're like in cadence with me, and it sounded like a man's leather shoes. And so I stopped, and the footsteps stopped. But they took one extra step, and then they stopped. And I thought, okay, I'm going to catch this guy, right? And I wasn't even afraid because, I'm there around dead people. So I took some more steps on my way to my car. And then I stopped suddenly and turned around, and the steps that had been following me kind of stuttered to a stop like they were going to run into me. And so there was no one there. There was no one there. And I wasn't afraid. And I said, look, I know you died. I know you're surprised. You need to go back to your body right now and stay with your body till the funeral. And there's supposed to be a bright light. So don't F around. Stay with your body and go into the light. Now go. And I heard the person's heel. They turned on their heels, and the footsteps went away from me.
Thank goodness this time that
right?
That essentially nothing followed you home.
Yeah, for real.
Well, I didn't see him or them. I mean, I just got the impression it was a guy wearing leather shoes.
Okay.
So, I mean, I had that experience, and then I've had other experiences when I've stayed in hotels, and then I've had a couple of family members come visit, and I could tell by the smell. Like I could smell their cigar, or I could smell their perfume, or I could smell the cigarette smoke. Like my mom came to visit me one time, I'm pretty sure. And one time when I was at work, I stood up and I looked across the cubicle, and there was a guy there. He worked for us, and I walked over to go talk to him, and he wasn't there. And I asked the receptionist, "Hey, where's so-and-so?" And she said, "He's not here. He hasn't come in today." And that's the first ghost. I thought, well, the guy's not even dead, so how could you even call it a ghost? But it was an image of a real person who wasn't there.
Okay, folks,
And
IMBZ.
there's your sign, really. There's your sign.
Okay.
That they're not really ghosts. None of them are.
So
they're all familiar spirits.
Oh, so they're all bad things.
See that? Yeah, they're very, very bad, and they attach. It's like they have to have. There's a universal law with those things. They have to have permission to attach or to go in your home and stuff like that. So that's why they come in and they be familiar to you. They'll be familiar. They'll smell like and then then you accept it as the person. But see, like you were just saying, you seen the person, but the person wasn't dead. Okay, but that other thing was trying to gain permission, kind of like acceptance. And then once they attach, then you're in for a real fun ride. You'll see a lot of stuff, and a lot of it not good.
Okay.
Well, I've done a lot of prayers because I don't like spirits. I don't to them, and I don't look for them, and I say prayers to protect my home and my family from property line to property line every day.
There you go.
Okay.
That's the way to do it.
All righty. Hey, I've got another call coming in. And
thank you, guys.
Hey, no, Simone.
Thank you for taking my call.
Simone, don't go anywhere. I've conference called you, so you don't have to hang up. But I do have another caller, okay. So if you're there and you can hear me, new caller, come on and weigh in and introduce yourself, please.
Yep. Hey, this is Ghost Wolf calling in.
Hey, great. Thank you.
And I'm a buddy of Alan's. I've known Alan for a couple of years, been on a couple outings, Bigfoot type outings with him. And I've had, paranormal experiences since I was, like I said in chat, probably since I was 5 years old.
Wow.
And I'm 59 now, and I see things on an almost daily basis.
Okay.
Different places, not where I live, but out in public.
Okay, now Alan knows who you are. I do not. Let me ask you the same question that I asked Simone. Do your experiences, Ghost Wolf, tend to range from, say, Bigfoot to UFOs to the paranormal, or
I've yet to definitely see a cryptid, such as a Bigfoot or another type of creature. But other than that, I've seen and experienced just about every paranormal subject that is out there. I didn't even know what to call some of these things. I mean, years ago, when people started using the term shadow people, I knew what they were because I'd seen them hundreds of times, but I didn't know what to call them. I didn't call them, I didn't really have a name for them. So I've seen a lot of just, bizarre, strange things. And it happens on an almost, for sure, weekly basis for me. But sometimes, like Alan hit the nail on the head, sometimes I'll see 5 things in a week, and I might go 2 weeks with nothing, and then all of a sudden it goes in like waves and flurries, and I've never been able to, to nail down a pattern of any kind. But it seems to be random that way, and people, I think people can be haunted, and I think that's what I am. It's not because, I've met and been around people who've never had a paranormal experience in their life, and then they start hanging out with me and they see things. And my wife is a good example. She never had any paranormal experience until she started hanging out with me. And, we've been together now for over 20 years. And so she's seen and experienced a lot of things just because, I guess being in proximity or whatever of me. And I can't explain it, like Alan said, also, nothing I ever asked for or I didn't dabble in it. It started with me when I was like 5 years old. I didn't know what any of this stuff was.
Okay, so Ghost Wolf, like a recurring dream, something that we tend to experience. And I used to have a ton of recurring dreams, and now I really don't anymore. But the the things that you're seeing now, Ghost Wolf, do they tend to be the same thing, the same one, the same entity, or are you seeing and or experiencing a wide range of things?
Totally wide range. And I'll give you an example. Just last night, I was down, I had to drive down to a different city for a medical appointment, and we stayed with my in-laws. And we're sitting at the table. There's 5 or 6 people there. And I sense movement out of the corner of my eye, and I look, and I see what looks like a bat just flying right at my head. So I actually flinch. And people at the table are looking at me, of course, like I'm crazy. And I'm looking around and go, well, didn't you guys see that? What was that? And I'm looking around me to see, is it a giant moth? Is it a bat? It was, about that size. And the funny thing was, my brother-in-law, who believes in nothing, I mean, he's an atheist. He believes in nothing. He got this funny look on his face. He goes, I don't know what the hell it was, but I saw it too right before it looked like it was going to hit you in the head. So it's just weird stuff, like it's random stuff like that. I mean, creatures, demons, a person that looked like a stick person. I watched a guy that looked human transform into what looked like a reptilian. I mean, I've seen stuff that I couldn't even, I'm not a drug or a big-time alcohol user of any kind, but I couldn't dream up this stuff if I was, on something. I mean, the things that are out there are, people don't know. Sometimes I think if people knew what was all around them, they'd be like a, mouse in a snake's cage if they knew what was really around them.
Okay, Ghost Wolf, hang on just one second. I'd like to hold both yourself and Simone over the break. I'm going to hit a break in about 60 seconds or less or so. When we come back, I'm BZ, folks, and you're in the Saloon, the Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show. Tonight, my guest is Alan Thomas, and I've also got a couple of people on the phone line right now, Simone and Ghost Wolf. When I come back, I want to ask Ghost Wolf this question. Do you think that something or a series of somethings are following you, or are you sensitive to things all around in all sorts of different locations? So hold that question. Folks, you're in the Saloon. Alan Thomas, thank you for being here. I'll be right back. We'll all be right back right after this.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
It is he that is me. bringing perspective from across the sea. Join me, Jack Alexander, 4 days a week for the Jack Alexander Experiment podcast, as I take a unique outsider's look at the news and issues affecting life and liberty here in the USA. I'll show you what the mainstream media refuses to. Politics, border security, defense, healthcare, travel, nothing is off limits. Catch the Jack Alexander Experiment podcast each Monday to Thursday on Facebook, YouTube, and everywhere good podcasts can be found. Also, check out the website, www.jackalexanderexperiment.com.
It's your business diva here, Melanie Collette. I am inviting you to a front row seat as I discuss some of the most intriguing details of wealth and finance with today's movers and shakers in the world of business. Listen in and discover financial truths on a global, domestic, and household scale. Uncover topics that will impact your wallet today and in the future. Money Talk with Melanie airs Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. East, 2 p.m. West, right here on SHR Media and High Plains Pundit Talk Radio. You can't afford to miss it.
After 6 years covering terror and corruption, the Unpleasant Blind Guy is making a change. I'm Dave Milner. Join me on Spreaker and YouTube through SHR Media and on the Western Free Radio Network as I team up with Jeff Mitchell, host of the English Defense League radio show on blogtalkradio.com. Check show pages for airtimes. It's the Unpleasant Blind Guy.
On EDL Radio.
There's
no surrender, ever.
Because truth is not always pleasant.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
And we are back. Thank you for being here tonight, everybody. I'm looking at the SHR Media chat room, and I see Sergeant Booker, Simone, the Alaskan, Whiskey Dale, Alan Thomas, Ghost Wolf, and one viewer who will not be unmasked. I'm looking Facebook chat, and Facebook chat does not move around a lot, so I can't say that I know exactly who's in there right now. But hello to Jeremy Hansen, and also to Sam Collum. I hope I pronounced that name correctly. Betty Winters Martinez, Callie Bigfoots, and Josh Kemp. So thanks to all those people for being in the Facebook chat room tonight. I greatly appreciate it. Now, on the phone still, I have Simone, and I also have Ghost Wolf. And I was going to ask, well, I did ask the question before the break, and I'd like to see if Ghost Wolf has an answer. I asked before the break to Ghost Wolf, do these things that you see tend to follow you around? Are they all the same thing generally, or do they not follow you around and you're just sensitive and receptive of these things no matter where you are?
The answer to that is both. And I'll tell you, I know that sounds funny, but no, I'm sensitive to wherever I go. It's just shopping with the wife at store, anywhere. I see things that most people aren't seeing. However, with that said, when you said have things ever followed you around, I'll tell you guys a story about how Alan knows a little bit about this history too, and he might want to chime in too, but I've actually helped some people get rid of these things from their homes and from having these issues. And I look at all this from a Christian perspective, so that's how I help these folks get rid of things. So at the time, the history of this, I was helping quite a lot of people get rid of these things. And on 2 successive mornings on my way to work, these, whatever you want to call them, entities, demons, whatever, tried to kill me in 2 different ways. And I'll explain how this happened. So at my previous job, I used to bicycle commute a lot, and it was 8 miles, and it was good for exercise and this and that. And so I rode bicycles forever on the street in traffic. And I'm a very, accomplished at the time, cyclist on the street. So I was at a red light, and at a major intersection on my way to work. The new place I was working was only about 3 miles away, so it was a very short ride. And the light turned green for us to go. And I, stepped on the pedals and took off about even with the little car next to me. And all of a sudden, the car next to me, we got out in the intersection, the car next to me just stopped. And so I didn't know what was going on, but when it stopped, I figured something must be going on. And I pulled both brakes, and when I looked up, a car was going through the intersection. Now, you might just think it was an errant driver running a red light, but here's the thing. I'm a car guy, and I could tell you from a quarter mile away what most cars are. And this car looked like, and I know this is going to sound crazy to you guys, but this car looked like it was made of like Lego bricks. And the windows were blacked out, and it missed my front tire by about a foot. And it was doing about 75 miles an hour, and it came so close that when I looked up at the people in the intersection that were stopped for the other direction that were on a red light, all of them, their eyes were big and their mouths were all open like, oh, my God, you almost got plowed under by this car. And I'm telling you, all the windows were black, not tinted, but opaque black. And the car looked like it was made of Lego bricks. So I carried on and I went to work. The very next day, I didn't want to ride again because it kind of shook me up, and I thought this was the weirdest, this was weird. So the next day I drove to work. So I parked across the street from my office. I was managing a 3D printing company at the time. And I had a four-door Toyota Tacoma, and I opened up my door, got out, and I opened up the back door to get my backpack out to walk into work. And when I looked down, something caught my eye. When I looked down, instead of a shadow person, there were shadow snakes. Just picture shadows that look like snakes, and they're all by my feet. And I'm like, what the heck? And I backed away, and when I backed away, I heard this loud engine sound. And out of the corner of my eye, I saw this red truck, and you guessed it, it looks like it's made of Lego bricks. And it was coming at me at such a speed, I had to grab the door handle or the grab handle inside the vehicle and pull my body inside. And the thing missed me by inches, slammed into the curb, bounced back out onto the roadway, and drifted around the corner. And it looked like it was made of Lego. It's the best way I could describe it. It looked like it was made of Lego bricks. And it left them physical because it left marks on the curb where it slammed in the curb where it almost got me. And I remember being so shook up at the time. I've since quit, but at the time I was a cigarette smoker, and I remember lighting a cigarette and calling my wife up, and my first words out of my mouth were, "They're trying to kill me."
In the chat room,
I told her what happened.
Ghost Wolf, Simone has a question for you, going back to the Legos. Okay. Simone, are you still there?
Yes, I am. Ghost Wolf, I was wondering, I just get the sense that people like you who can see things are kind of like warriors, and warriors stand out like beacons, like little lights in the dark. And I think warriors get targeted, and I think it's it's probably pretty simple, good versus evil, and that's all evil stuff. And so if you're a bright light, maybe they go after bright lights like whack-a-mole.
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever think that?
I absolutely think that's correct. In fact, someone one time said, it's funny, you just gave me goosebumps, because someone once that was kind of intuitive looked at me and said, "You're a warrior for God, and they know you by name." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And they're like, "Demons, they know who you are, they know you by name, so always be careful." And I'm like, "Oh, okay, thank you." And she literally used those words. She said, "You're like a light in a dark room. They're always going to gravitate toward you, so be prepared." And so I'm always prepared. I keep myself, prayed up, so to speak. I've got, prayers on my phone for, if something happens on the street that I have to address or take care of or something. And I think you're absolutely right. What you're saying is right. But on those 2 days, I would, with every fiber of my being, I can tell you, those things were trying to kill me. on 2 successive days. So I also had another quick thing where a kid one time that was working for me was definitely demon oppressed. And one day in my office, he said, and I've never told the story that I just told you about that person that said they know you by name and all that, right? And all of a sudden this kid says, because I've been called by name before by some of these entities, and this kid in my office, his eyes went black, not the white parts, but I mean his pupils that were normally blue, literally turned black, and he looked at me and said, they all know you by name. They know who you are. And it kind of freaked me out. So I think you're correct. And that's what I really, I really believe. I think that that's the case with me.
Alan Thomas, let me ask you a question that I'd like to ask Simone, and then I'd like to ask Ghost Wolf. Alan Thomas, with you, I think my base question is, does it tend to be the precept that there are predicating events, specific predicating events that occur where people become sensitive thereafter? For example, Alan Thomas, you died twice on the table. So are there primary, very important events in one's life that tend to trigger something like that, Alan Thomas?
It can, like in my case, but then like with Ghost Wolf and Simone, it could just be genetic, like, and coming down through family lines. And, I couldn't tell you which line, like the father or the mother, but I do know, like, I've investigated enough stuff to find out that, or like somebody will be abducted a lot of times, right, over their life from a child and have all kinds of weird things happening. But then when I tell them to go home and start talking to their grandma, and stuff like that, and ask them questions, and they didn't even know, but now they do, that the grandma was sensitive like that, or maybe got premonitions, and then, her mom was the same way, and her mom was the same way, and but only it does happen also, like if you have a near-death experience or something like that. And then it also happens that once they reveal themselves to you, like you be not, your family's not anything paranormal, and then one day you experience something, and then forever after you will. And I don't know if it is, I think it's because all of a sudden your mental process changes, and it's more accepting of those things, and they can read you or whatever it is, and all of a sudden they reveal themselves. And most of the time it's to scare you, but don't be scared.
Then let me ask Simone, and then I'd like to ask Ghost Wolf. Then to you, Simone, do you think your ability to be sensitive to certain things may be generational? Unless there was one specific incident that you can think of that predicated everything else.
Well, BZ, as an adult, in the reading, all the different things that I've been reading, I'm beginning to wonder if that alien thing that I saw when I was 12, I don't know if it really was an alien. I mean, it appeared as an alien to me. And Fresno is known for a lot of weird things going on, but maybe in my case, maybe it's just all more spiritual in nature, because I haven't seen a Bigfoot, I haven't seen the Loch Ness Monster, I haven't seen any other cryptids, and I've been in places where I should have. I mean, I worked at Yosemite National Park as a ranger for the summer one summer, so I don't know. There's always that thing of, if you're open to the possibility, and some people do seances or do chanting or whatever to put themselves in the right frame of mind. And in my case, I didn't try to get in the right frame of mind. Maybe maybe it was just timing, and something opened up in my mind and made me more receptive to that, because I have never, ever looked for that stuff. And before I forget, I wanted to tell Ghost Wolf that Lego thing, I put it in chat. You know, when they're trying to build something out of nothing, maybe that's as far as they got. They couldn't get a finished look, and that's why it only looked like a Lego. And maybe to other people it looked more like a car. You know, it's like animation. You know, game animation isn't as finite as movie animation, so you could see it's pixelated. And so maybe they put it together too fast. And because of your abilities, you could see it for what it was, not a real car, but still just as deadly. I don't know if I answered your question, BZ.
Okay, then Ghost Wolf, over to you. Do you think it's generational, or was there a singular predicating event that just made you susceptible and aware?
I think it's generational, and I think, well, it can be. I don't think it always has to be, but I think Alan was correct in his assumption. I've heard of this going back several generations, and like Alan said, people have to do this research to find out that, oh, shoot, you know, my great-grandpa turned out to be a witch doctor in Mexico, and I had no idea. Or, and the only reason I personally think it might be is because my mom had this gift of, when I was a kid, the phone would ring, and, you know, of course, back in the day, I'm talking rotary phones, no digital readout or anything. She'd say, oh, that's my Uncle so-and-so from Nebraska. My parents are both from Nebraska. And she'd pick up the phone, and she was right all the time. And it was just the most random things. And her and I had a connection where one time when I was about 12 years old, I was riding my bicycle, and I was riding it at a place that I always used to ride it. In fact, if you guys have heard of the King's Hawaiian Bread,
yes,
the factory started out here in Torrance, which was my original hometown, and we used to ride around the site where they were building it. And the day I was going to take off, my mom says, you shouldn't go out riding your bike today. I says, why? She goes, oh, you're going to get hurt. You better be careful. And I said, oh, come on, you know, you never believe that. And sorry about that. I had a phone alarm going. And anyway, I went to this place I'd been riding a bunch of times, and I started riding toward this particular jump I used to like to go off on my little motocross bike, and all of a sudden I heard her voice audibly say stop. And so it shocked me so much I slammed on the brakes and I skidded to a stop. And when I looked over the edge, or what I used to just jump off, it used to be just this little 3 or 4 foot jump off into dirt. Well, the day before, they had dug for the foundation, and it was about 3 feet deeper, and it had a bunch of rebar bars sticking straight up vertically. So if I would have went off that thing, I probably would have, impaled myself. Okay. And so I got that warning from her, and I stopped, and I'm sure it's either saved my life or saved me from getting really messed up. And then later in life, she was in the hospital, and I was at home, and all of a sudden I heard her voice talk to me in my head saying, I just want to give up and not wake up. And my mom, unfortunately, had a lot of medical issues throughout her life, and she had many surgeries, and she never had a problem with the anesthesia, but this was like the second day. She hadn't woken up really from the anesthesia, and they were starting to worry about her. And so I went to the hospital, and my dad was downstairs, like in the lobby, and he says, oh, it's a kind of a coincidence you're here. And I said, why? And he goes, well, your mother's not awake yet, but she's been reciting over and over, I wish Chris was here, I wish Chris was here. So I went up there, and sure enough, she was still out of it, but she was reciting my name, and all of a sudden, something told me, asked the doctor about the stuff, carbon monoxide from in her blood. And so the doctor was there, and I said, look, I'm not trying to tell you how to do your job, but did you check her blood for carbon monoxide? And he kind of gave me this weird look, and all of a sudden, my mom went into she was dying, and she went like code blue and in front of me. And so we all scattered out, and he started yelling at nurses to give him an injection of some type of drug, and he gave it to her. And within almost a few minutes, she woke up. And the doctor pulled me aside and said, how could you possibly know about carbon monoxide poisoning? Because it looks like she had a bad reaction to anesthesia, and we almost lost her. And I said, I made up some excuse. I couldn't tell him how I knew, but I just said, oh, well, I just guessed or something. I don't know. I was just glad my mother was still alive. So I know I'm sorry for rambling on like that, but, I think you have connections sometimes to different relatives, or like Alan said, it could be a few generations back and you may not know. And the other thing that's kind of strange is the first paranormal experience I had was at a funeral. Well, it wasn't at the funeral, but it was on a trip for a funeral for my mother's brother. And so that could be a coincidence, or I've never thought of it this way until you guys were asking these. Like I said before in the chat, you guys are asking really good questions, but I've never thought of that. But that may be part of the generational thing. Because my first experience was on a trip in Nebraska for a funeral for my mother's brother.
Let me ask all three of you if I can. I'd like to start with Alan, then Simone, then go to Ghost Wolf. And also to Callie Bigfoot in chat, because we've been interacting very rapidly in chat. Alan Thomas, with you first. That you've been susceptible and sensitive and receptive to what you've experienced in retrospect, or maybe even considering the future, was this a good thing for you that you have this ability, this sense, or is it something that you wish, I wish I'd never really experienced any of these things?
Well, to tell you the truth, I didn't know. I think I always had it. And the near-death experience kind of, I don't know what you would call enhanced it to where I couldn't, like before I could deny it. You know what I mean? Like, oh, that didn't happen, or I didn't hear that, I didn't see that, I didn't feel that. Yeah, I mean, just my mind playing tricks on me. But then afterwards, it became where it was undeniable, and as far as sometimes it can be a curse, because you, like when, I don't want to sound crazy or anything, but when you mind speak with some of these things, or you have a conversation with them in your mind, and you think you're going to go, you think that's totally crazy. And I don't even know why I just said that, because I don't normally tell people that because it sounds crazy. Yeah, but then there's good things too, because then, like what Chris was talking about, things will happen to other people, and you're able to help them out, clean their house out of these things that attach themselves to them. And that's really satisfying, especially when you hear later that after you left, the house smelled like flowers for 2 weeks and stuff like that. I mean, it's really satisfying.
So, Alan Thomas, it sounds like for you, there are a lot more pluses in the positive column than there are in the negative column.
Right.
Okay. Simone, same question to you, that you've been able to see things, experience things. Do you consider that sort of a plus, or is it something that, I wish that had never happened?
Well, I think that in the beginning, I'm a lot like Alan. I think in the beginning there was a lot of denial because it's scary. I mean, it's. Oh no, this is going to sound totally stupid and cocky, and I don't mean it to sound that way. But it's almost like you have a superpower, but you don't want to admit you have a superpower, because then what's going to happen? What are the responsibilities that come along with that ability, right? And how consistent is it? How true is it? And can you actually use it for good? And so for me, I mean, there was a time in my life when I contemplated getting trained professionally to learn more about this ability, like it's a gift. And then there's this other part of me that's really afraid, because like I really think it's like a whack-a-mole. Right now, I have my light under a basket, and if I come out from under the basket, I'm going to be seen, and then that makes me a target. And I don't know if I'm strong enough to fight back as a target. Like I think Ghost Wolf is strong, but I can't even call myself a baby warrior. So that's kind of how I feel about it. I mean, I would love to learn more and be able to do the right thing with it, and learn how not to be afraid.
Okay, next question to Ghost Wolf. And then I've got another question that comes from the chat room to everybody. Let's see, who is that from? That was from the Alaskan. I'll get to that in a second. So, Ghost Wolf, all of the things that you've experienced, is what you possess or have experienced more of a blessing or a curse?
I would say more of a curse than a blessing. Unfortunately, I'd love to be able to say that, I've seen angels and things like that. I haven't. Everything I've seen is, unfortunately, on the negative side. Now, with that said, that's part of it's a curse. Now, the blessing part of it is being sensitive enough and strong enough in my faith to be able to help people. And so that part of it, like Alan said, has been a blessing. The fact that I'm sensitive has also helped people just in ways, and it's a long story I won't get into now, but I actually stopped a guy from killing a 7-year-old in Idaho, and I worked with some police folks, and this guy got arrested, and I told him what he looked like and everything before they knew what he looked like. And when they arrested him, they sent me a newspaper clipping of the guy, and he was exactly the way I described. So there's been moments where I've helped people, done good with it, but it comes at a high personal price too. I could show you physical scars I have on my body that I could tell you the story behind it that's absolutely paranormal. Sometimes when I help someone, it takes so much energy out of me. It's one time on a particularly bad case, I was exhausted. I slept for like 18 hours. It literally sucked the life energy out of me to do this stuff. So, and Simone's exactly right. It's like what she was saying was spot on. That at first you think, oh wow, I've got this thing that I can do that most people can't do, and then when you go the direction I did, trying to help people, now it becomes a responsibility. Now I feel responsible to help people, and I will. I tell people, I'm available 24/7 to help out, but it's the demons and things that I've seen are just almost beyond description. It just horrible things,
Okay. Let's do this. I'm going to have to break at the bottom of the hour, and then I'll come right back after about 2 minutes or so. There are a couple of really great questions that were in chat that I'd like to address when we come back. I'm BZ. We're listening and talking to Alan Thomas. After the break, I'd like to wrap up the phone calls because I think I've got some other people that are calling in that would like to chat. But I also want to address the questions that the people in the chat room at SHR Media have had, and because there's some great questions. So hang on, folks. Hang on the phone. Hang on, Alan Thomas, and we will all be right back after this.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Southern Sense is conservative talk with Annie, the radio chick you bellows as host, and C.S. Bennett co-host. Informative, fun, irreverent, and politically incorrect. You never know where they'll go, but you'll love the journey. Annie is a top conservative host on Top Talk Radio and features some of the finest guests packed with important politicians and newsmakers. Listen every Friday, 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern, noon to 3 Pacific, on the SHR Media Network. Remember, Southern Sense is common sense.
Hey, Are you guys listening? This is Shannon from Right Wave with Shannon and Mike in the AM on SHR Media. I know you've been wondering where we are and what's been going on. Well, folks, that's right. We're back. So please join us 7 to 9 a.m. Monday through Thursday on SHR Media, on Spreaker, iHeartRadio, and Spotify, and Facebook Live at 11 a.m. on Right Way with Shannon and Mike in the AM at Facebook. You don't want to miss a minute. We've got lots of guests, lots of segments, and lots of interesting things. And let's face it, there's nowhere for you to go, so you might as well tune in. Again, Right Way with Shannon and Mike in the AM. We're back live on the air on SHR Media, 7 to 9 a.m. Monday through Thursday, audio and Facebook Live, audio and video. Yes, we are going to do video. Facebook Live, Right Way with Shannon and Mike in the AM. Hope to see you soon.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
And we're back. It's the... What is it now? It's the final 28 minutes of the show. Thanks to everybody for being here tonight. I've got a ton of people in chat. Whiskey Dale, Mike, Callie Bigfoots, The Alaskan, Simone Says, Sergeant Booker, Alan Thomas, Gray Wolf, and one viewer, and a ton of people that are over in Facebook chat. That Facebook chat is not letting me see any of the new people that might be in there. So thanks to everyone for being here tonight. We have Ghost Wolf and Simone that are still on the phone, and I'd kind of like to wrap you two guys up, but a final question for everybody. The Alaskan in chat said, have any of you tried reaching out to touch one? And what he meant by that was something that you've seen, an apparition, not a Bigfoot specifically, but something that you've experienced or has been around you or have seen. Have you tried touching something to see if it has a bit of physicality about it? I thought that was a really cool question. Alan?
I never have, but I have in Africa wrestled with demon-possessed people and was actually grabbing them and, holding them down and stuff like that until I could get the demon gone. But usually I'm ready to run most times.
Okay. When you this popped into my head, and this is what the show is about, stuff popping into my crazy head. Did you have any hesitation to do that in terms of thinking, oh, is this going to transfer to me? Because we've all seen the movies, okay, and sometimes that stuff occurs, or what I'm told.
Well, if you know what you're doing, and some people might not like hearing this, but if you have the Lord and you found Jesus and he is in you, you don't have that problem and you don't have that fear. So it doesn't follow you. But the people that dabble in it that don't have that living in them, or that, they'll go out and dabble like these paranormal TV show people messing around with Ouija boards and all kinds of crap. They really don't understand what they're doing, and then they go home with it, and then I get the call, hey, what do I do? This thing's haunting my house, and I have to tell them how to get rid of it. And sometimes they do the right thing, and sometimes they're like, they can't handle the Jesus part, and they forever are haunted.
Okay.
It's sad.
Okay, same question for you, Simone. Have you, in what it is that you've experienced or sensed, have you ever had the inclination to try to make any kind of physical contact or touch an apparition?
So I stayed at a hotel in Fort Bragg one time and had a ghost experience there. And then a year and a half later, I ended up at the same hotel, and I was afraid I was going to have a ghost experience. So I went to a place that sold gemstones and got this black stone. I can't remember the name of it offhand. and I had it with me. And I was really glad I did, because the second time I stayed at that hotel on a different floor in a different room, something came in the room, and it pulled the bed sheet, the fitted sheet on the bed. It pulled the fitted sheet. It actually moved under me, and the room got really cold, and I was holding the stone in the palm of my hand, and this thing came over. I heard it walk up to my side of the bed, and then I felt a bunch of coals just drop down on my back, almost like it had its hand over me. It was getting ready to touch me or something. So a bunch of cold, and then the coals touched me, and then it made this little sound, and then it was a smell of ozone. So I didn't reach out to touch it. It reached out to touch me, and I think the stone I was holding protected me. And it was that ozone, like when you have a wet plug and you put it in the wall, it makes that funny kind of smell. So no, I don't reach out and touch anything, and I don't want it touching me either.
Okay. Simone, thank you very much for that. I appreciate your call. On to Ghost Wolf. Have you ever had the inclination to reach out and touch something, so to speak? I guess maybe to determine its physicality, if it's really there? Or is that something really stupid?
Yeah, my story is similar to Simone's. I haven't had the opportunity to reach out and touch one, but with that said, I have made they can possess physicality, because I've actually physically fought with a couple times physical demons. They absolutely can have physical thoughts, because I kicked, one time, this is during a nighttime thing, my wife said, you keep waking up in the middle of the night and I hear you fighting and praying and rebuking these things and throwing punches and kicks and everything, and I wasn't even waking up, which I thought was odd. And so maybe a week later or something, I kind of woke myself up. I was lying on my back in bed throwing kicks, trying to get something off me, and I was kicking in the air, but yet I made contact with something. I thought, wow, how can this be? And at first I thought, was I sleeping? Did I, kick my wife? I looked over, she's sound asleep. And I said, no, my little feet were in the air. I kicked something I couldn't, really see. I know I could feel it. So I went to the bathroom and I turned the lights on, and I looked at the bottom of my foot, and it was bright red and just throbbing, like as if it, like you smacked it onto concrete or something. And there was another time where I got in a physical altercation so bad I got picked up and thrown into a dresser, and I've got a big scar on the top of my arm where it cut my arm open, and I was laid out like on the ground, and I was kind of in shock a little bit, like what the heck just happened? And my wife woke up and said, oh man, you're bleeding. And that was kind of an ordeal. And I've been poked, and I don't know how these things can do it, but one time I felt like one of them stabbed me in the chest, and I thought, maybe I was just, in shock, or this can't be right. But yet later in the night, I was telling my wife about what happened. This had happened at work, and she said, does it still hurt? And I said, well, yeah, kind of. And I took my shirt off, and there I had a blood mark where I'd been poked by something. So they definitely have physicality when they want to, and they can, move great. People think that they, can't move things, but in one house I lived in, I had an empty Sparklets bottle that I was the only one home, and I heard a big noise, and something had kicked it through my front window, like from the inside, from the kitchen, just so it looked as if you walked up and kicked it as hard as you could. And I don't want to go down maybe out for another night or another call or something. We can go over that, but they have unlimited physical power.
Okay. All righty. Simone and Ghost Wolf, again, thank you for your calls. I greatly appreciate it. I got another one coming in, so thank you very much for being here. I'm going to go to Alan.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Bye, guys.
Yeah, thanks. Appreciate it.
I'm going to go back to Alan, and this was a question that was in chat that was posed by Simone, and I'll go back to that, which was, Alan, do you think this is the beginning of a series of, and I think I've asked this before, but I'm curious if you have any more recent thoughts about this. Does what is happening right now on most every level, paranormal, UFO, we'll get to some more UFO stuff, Bigfoot, Sasquatch, unexplained, paranormal, does all of this, is it sort of influenced by something bigger? That is to say, a lot of people are saying we're in the end times, things are different, they've never been this way, I can't remember having experienced life in this fashion before. So all of these separate little areas, are they indicative of one sort of bigger, larger, more umbrella-like encompassing thing?
I believe so, and I'll explain it a little bit. Like a few years ago, we had what would you call a UFO flap?
Okay.
And here in the valley, they call it the Nevada Triangle. And so the whole Nevada Triangle is having this UFO flap, and we were getting reports everywhere. We were seeing them our own self. Some of them would hang in the air for hours, and then one day it stopped, and everything kind of slowed down, everything, for probably 3 years. Then all of a sudden, everything came back, and more than ever. And like now, we used to drive, several hours to get up to where the Bigfoot were. And now we can drive 15 minutes because they're in the valley, running up and down the rivers. The UFOs are like almost a daily thing now, when it used to be, every so often you would get somebody telling you about it. In fact, I wanted to touch on that touching thing.
Okay.
Like one real quick.
Okay.
I have a friend named Heidi Hollis. Everybody probably knows who that is. She's pretty well known. I think she started the name Hat Man. But only she had the aliens coming in, and at first she was channeling them, and then she stopped doing that. She had an encounter with Jesus, so she quickly changed. But the aliens didn't leave her alone, and one night she heard something in her living room, and she went out to find 5 little aliens in her living room, and one of them was messing with the pictures that she had on the mantle of the fireplace or a bookshelf or something, and it picked up the picture. So then it made her mad that they were messing with her stuff, so she ran over there, grabbed the picture out of its hand, and punched it. And it fell to the ground, and as it was falling, it turned into the person in the picture. Okay, now the person in the picture was her nephew, like 12 years old, in the picture. But in reality, he's an adult, right? So she actually punched it, and it went down, and it was saying, "Don't hit me, don't hit me." And it was her nephew saying that at 12 years old. And almost, it kind of threw her into a little weird thing. But I actually believe that there's a veil. The Bible talks about it as scales on people's eyes, where you see through a window that's smoky or dark, and you can't see the whole dimension. We only see what we see, but there's a whole other world out there that's all around us, living right next to us, and we can't see it. But I think that is thinning now, and people are starting to see more things, and I have a feeling it's going to break into this. It's going to break open to where everyone's going to be able to see it, and I actually believe it has a lot to do with what people are calling the Great Awakening right now.
Okay, it's funny you should mention that, and I was going to bring this up, and you kind of opened the door, and I'm going to walk through. I know that you and Jeffrey Gonzalez happen to be around the Fresno area. And for those of you who are not familiar with the state of California, always spell it with a K, Sacramento, being the capital of California, is up just slightly above halfway of the state of California. Fresno is about 2 hours, almost 4 hours south of Sacramento, and it's kind of in between, say, Bakersfield and San Jose. Fairly in agricultural, but I mention this because just yesterday, this article came out, and it was written by George Knapp, who I know Alan knows that name, and a guy named Duncan Phoenix. And I wanted to bring it up for today because it was written, it just got issued yesterday. This is from yourcentralvalley.com. And the headline is, and I'd like to see maybe if Alan Thomas knows or can explain, the headline says, Fresno ranks 43 in U.S. cities with the most UFO sightings. The reason I bring that up is because not a lot of people know about Fresno in California or where it is. It's like asking somebody on the East Coast, hey, do you know where Salinas is in California? And most of the people would go, oh, never heard it in my life. And a lot of people on the East Coast would say, I've never heard of Fresno in my life. But it's a hotbed of activity. It says the year of the pandemic was also the year of the UFO. A massive statistical analysis shows Americans in lockdown spent a lot of time eyeing the sky, resulting in an across-the-board spike in UFO sightings. So it may be due to COVID-19. It may be due to a lot of people going outside. But they're looking at the observations, and they're saying Phoenix is the number one city. Second year in a row. New York City is number 2. I never used to count New York's 5 boroughs. I attended the counties. Now we're counting them as a full city. Las Vegas is number 3 for sightings. Los Angeles is number 4. Number 6 is Portland. San Diego is number 10. Houston is number 11. Albuquerque is 13. Sacramento is number 21 in the country. 23 is San Francisco. Fresno was 43, and Lubbock is up to 75. So for places that people may not know about or may not have heard, Fresno is very, very active, Alan Thomas. And do you think there's any, because I've heard it active on almost all the ranges, UFO, Bigfoot, Sasquatch, paranormal. Is there a reason that you can think of, Alan Thomas, why Fresno may tend to be so darned active?
I have no idea.
I just found it really interesting.
It is interesting, and I find it interesting that, see, like when people call in, or, they tell you, hey, I seen a UFO, or an alien or something like that, almost every time that they're either taking the garbage out or they're out smoking a cigarette. So, look up, you know what I mean? Are more people looking up? I don't know. I think it's more like this veil is getting thinner and people are able to see into that other realm better than ever. And I don't know why, Sacramento's 21, it's above Fresno. I mean, I don't really know what's going on. All I know is it's on the increase worldwide, actually, not just the United States.
Okay. All right.
Everywhere.
Good
question, though. Man.
I wish we had more time, which means obviously I'm going to have you back.
Yeah.
I was going to talk about my 3 UFO experiences and my 1 Sasquatch experience. I'm going to hold that for another time because there are some other things that I'd like to talk about, and we only have about 10 minutes to go. But there's let me just play this news cut, and then, Alan Thomas, I'd like your weighing in on this because something very interesting on the UFO front is about to break here in the United States.
All right, and now for something completely different. The former National Intelligence Director is revealing a new government report on UFOs will be full of never-before-seen or heard intel.
Frankly, there are a lot more sightings than have been made public. We're talking about objects that, engage in actions that are difficult to explain, that movements that are hard to replicate, that we don't have the technology for.
This is former DNI director of National Intelligence, Ratcliffe, who was appointed during the Trump
Okay, joining us right now to
administration.
discuss is Lou Elizondo. He is the former director of the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, a Pentagon unit that studied UFOs. Lou, good morning to you.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
So part of the evidence apparently is going to show UFOs or some, they're just unidentified objects, breaking the sound barrier without a sonic boom. How is that possible?
Well, I think that's probably the crux of the problem, that we are seeing these, let's call them vehicles, if you will, that are incurring into controlled U.S. airspace, that are displaying performance characteristics that are frankly well beyond anything that we can either replicate or in some cases really even understand.
So when you're talking about that, you're talking about how these things are able to do things that we have no idea how it's possible, given the speed and the altitude and things like that, and the turns and everything like that. I'm sure you've got the top physics experts in the world working on this. Can they come up with any explanation?
I think as we begin to look at this, we're beginning to realize that a lot of this really isn't breaking the laws of physics. What it's doing is really breaking our understanding of the current laws of physics that we are looking at. In essence, these things, if you look at quantum physics, there's a lot of modeling right now that suggests that a lot of this performance can be explained if you have a really deep understanding of quantum physics. And by the way, you're absolutely right. There's 5 unique observables that these things are displaying. One is instantaneous acceleration. The second one is hypersonic velocity. The third one is a bit of an oxymoron, but it's low observability. And then the fourth one is transmedium travel, the ability to operate in different environments. And then the last observable is this, if you will, this weird positive lift or anti-gravity, where you have these vehicles with no wings, no control surfaces, no engines, and yet somehow they're able to fly and frankly outperform some of the very best aircraft that we have in our inventory.
Unbelievable stuff. So when people say, "Oh, you're in that business," how do you explain these UFOs?
Sure. Well, my business has always been that as an investigator. I was an intelligence officer for the U.S. government, so my business was just to find the truth, whatever the truth is, whether it's a terrorism investigation or counter-espionage. Yeah, we applied the same methodologies we did investigating terrorist, if you will, operations and operatives as we did with this. And the information is very compelling. It's real.
Yeah. Okay, it's real. Are they from another planet?
Well, I think it's too early to tell. The 3 options are that have been presented that it's our secret technology, but we've done a terrible job at coordinating the testing of this technology for decades with ourselves, which is highly unlikely. The second option is that it's foreign adversarial technology, which, if you were to ask me, would be a huge intelligence failure of this country because we've been technologically leapfrogged. Or the third option is that it's something completely different. If it's not ours and it's not theirs, well, then it's someone or something else.
That, Alan Thomas, I find very significant. So in a bill that was signed late last year, tacked onto this bill is the revelation that we're going to have a massive report dump about UFOs.
Yeah.
And I find the congruence of that timing with all the crap that's occurring in the United States right now very interesting. So do you have any thoughts on either the report or the timing or what it will contain or maybe even why? Why that? Why now? I think I know, but I'm curious what you think, Alan Thomas.
Well, what I think is this veil is going. We have technologies like Looking Glass and stuff like that. That's how they've been able to control us. They can see the future and stuff like that using technology that they found on the Earth that was ancient. And the Germans were looking for it, you know. But anyways, we're getting down to the wire here, and the powers that be, or the ones that hold the knowledge of our, you know, of what's going on in the human world, they know that there's nothing they can do to stop the truth from coming out. Now, they'll try to hold your attention with UFOs and this and that, but what it's all going to come out, all of it, the whole truth, like everything they're doing, you know, the Satan worshiping, the adrenochrome, everything is going to come out. Things I don't even know, that, you know, even you don't know, I don't know, nobody knows. All this is all going to come out, and we're going to find that it's all related. It's all related. And Ghost Wolf even put it, you know, aliens equal demons, or demons equal aliens. All these things, this is all going to come out, and it's going to be shocking to the world. It's going to throw everybody's life upside down. I actually had a vision way before I got hurt. It was in 1986, and I had a vision of this happening. It was like the wall turned into a giant movie screen, and I seen all the truth coming out, and people, like what Ghost Wolf was describing that he sees, everyone's going to be able to see it. So, I mean, be prepared for that. This isn't very far away. That's why they're signing bills, and that's why this government is so wackadoodle at the moment. They're trying to, the ones that are in power in control right now, they're trying to keep the lid on it, right? Because it's gonna, their truth is going to come out, and we're not going to like these people that we do. You know, we don't like them anyways, but a lot of people are fooled by them. But they're very, very, very bad, evil people, and they're all over the world. And it seems like all the countries are drawing the line. You know, what they call the black hats and the white hats. The white hats are winning, they say. Well, really, nobody is winning except for who is ripping the veil. That's who's winning. The truth is going to come out, no matter what anybody does. The decisions that we have every day that make our course of our life, all of them lead to one central point, which is that veil ripping and the truth coming out now. So, boy, are we in for a big show, really. I mean, that's what I believe. And from a lot of research and studies over the last 20 years, that's what I think.
I would tend to think along the lines of you in terms of an objective practicality, physical black and white. I get why Luis Elizondo from ATIP and why the U.S. military are really concerned about what's up in the skies. And he ticked off those 5 elements of, I guess they got embarrassed calling them UFOs. Now they call them UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomenon, which is a UFO, folks, if you didn't know. But their concern now on a practical level is, where are these things coming from? Who's driving them? Who's inside? What are they? And they're embarrassing the crap out of whatever the standard is for the military of the entire planet. And that in and of itself is a security threat. So I understand the concern that the military has, but I tend to agree with you in terms of I've been disabused of coincidences. I cannot help. I can't help but
you've done so much research. I mean, I listen to you all the time, and you're right on the edge of it there, BZ. I mean, all the time. I mean, you're cutting edge, brother. Seriously.
I cannot help but think that we're building to some kind of a crescendo. I said that 2 years ago. I said we're heading towards some kind of a cataclysm. I had no idea the speed, the catastrophic speed at which this would occur. I thought we had another 2-3 years or something like that. No, I don't think we do. I think we're heading towards a crescendo, a tsunami. I'm not convinced it's going to be good. As a matter of fact, I'm convinced it'll be very unpleasant. And I have no idea in what form it will take. But I'm with you in terms of I believe it will affect everything, everyone, every nation across the spectrum, any way imaginable. Any way imaginable.
It's gonna be spectacular. I mean, it actually will be ultimately good, because the actual fight that we're seeing play out in the media, the censorship, all the stuff, it's evil against good. And so far, we're seeing like the evil winning, you know, like especially in our country. But if you look at all the other countries, they're having the same fight. I mean, these bad people that are controlled by these beings, and possibly even aliens, of what we call aliens, or they're running the show right now, and they got everybody masked up and scared of their own shadow, and you know, and when you look at the actual numbers, it really isn't that bad. They're just making fear, you know, and they're scaring the world, but only I think it's going to happen really fast too, quick.
I had not even remotely anticipated this rapid a response. But that kind of leads into next week, next Tuesday, I'm going to have an SHR Media special report about race and what I think is being prompted, a race war. I think there are elements in society, in the United States, and perhaps across the rest of the planet, who are attempting to prod and poke a race war. And then I've also got a very interesting individual coming into the Saloon next Thursday night, Charles Love, who he's going to be talking about the loss of qualified immunity for police. He's a black conservative. He's got a great book coming out, and he's going to be here in the Saloon for about an hour. So next week, those are my two shows, an SHR Media special report on Tuesday night, and then I've got Charles Love coming in here, who has his own radio show, and he's all across the board, a very popular, very difficult to get guy who's extremely active, and I'm just pleased as hell to be able to have him here. So that's what I've got coming up in the future next week. So
good stuff.
let me ask you before we both go away, Alan Thomas, have you got anything coming up on your agenda? Are you eyeballing your show again, or what's happening in your neck of the woods?
Well, I want to speak to my people that follow me and stuff like that, and I know I've been pretty rare, you know. I'm putting out edited videos and not doing much live, but sometimes life does that to you, you know. And, and I had a room. And everybody knows, you know, I got it all fixed up and everything, and life took it away from me for a little while. I'm going to help my daughter and grandkids, and because they moved out of a house and brought all their things, and then we had to like condense our things in the house, so I don't have room for anything except to walk through little, you know, areas. And if my daughter and grandkids hear this, I do this willingly and lovingly, and I would do it again and again and again, and I would do it for every kid, all 6 kids. So, you know, it's not a complaint, But I will be back live again, and I'm just going to enjoy that I have the time to go out in the woods and follow the creeks and enjoy the nature and listen to everybody's shows and learn a whole bunch of stuff, and then come back and edit things, and put little things out that I find interesting. And then go on shows like yours, and I've been on a few others, and I'm just enjoying myself, and I'll be back sooner or later here.
You will definitely, Alan Thomas. When that report is released, and I'm guessing maybe about a month, maybe about another 2 months, somewhere right around in there. I think it's going to be close. I don't know exactly when. I want to have you back to weigh in on that, because my guess is it's going to be a report and information dump of monumental proportions. Absolutely unprecedented, certainly in the United States of America. The other thing I want to leave everyone with is we've been talking to Alan Thomas tonight. Alan Thomas has a drone. Alan Thomas had a show called Squatch Zone. And correct me if I'm wrong now, you're making videos that you're editing that you've shot with your drone, correct?
Yeah, I have drone footage in it.
Okay.
I actually have two. One YouTube is just drones.
Okay.
And I don't edit the drone footage. I just put the raw footage and I just put music on it, and you see all the mistakes as I'm learning or setting up the drone or whatever. I don't edit out all the little quick turns and everything. It's too interesting to me. I just think it's cool. But then Squatch Zone, I edit. Like I went out last weekend, and I'm going to go again a couple of times this coming weekend. And I'll take all kinds of footage from the phone, with the phone, the camcorder, the other, the GoPros, and the drone, and then I edit something together showing the little trip, the highlights, kind of like.
Okay, so if people want to see your footage, your video footage, boy, is that an ancient term. Back when everybody shot film footage, yeah, there is no such thing as footage anymore. It's video. Anyway, Callie Bigfoot's in the chat said Sky Squatchin'. So you have a YouTube channel, and it's called Sky Squatchin'?
Yeah,
okay.
That's the one I put all the drone footage.
And you also have, and Callie Bigfoot's made mention of this in the chat room as well, Squatch Zone. Folks, go to Squatch Zone in YouTube. There are a ton of great videos and shows that Alan Thomas has done over the years. You can just sit there for one night or a couple of nights or a week and listen and watch all of his shows. Great stuff and highly recommended. So Sky Squatchin' from Alan Thomas on YouTube, and Squatch Zone by Alan Thomas on YouTube as well. Did I miss any areas that people should look for?
No, that's it. In fact, Callie Bigfoot's, tell your dad I'm looking forward to Memorial Day, and he'll know what that means.
Okay.
We're going to go squat. We usually go out squatching on Memorial Day, and I'm looking forward to that, and it should be fun. I won't fly the drone there anymore, but only I'll still bring you the other stuff,
Okay. Cool.
Something took over my drone the last time I went there. So
did you lose it? Did you get it back?
Yeah. It just took control. It was flying it around and everything, and I had no control. And my drone was flying around. Then all of a sudden, after a few minutes, it started saying, going home, landing, and it flew back and landed right where it took off. And I did not do that. I lost control, and I was only about 75 feet away from the drone, and it was 400 feet up, but 75 feet. This thing can go 2 miles. There's no reason for me to lose it so close, and I've lost it twice like that in really high Bigfoot hotspots. That's another thing. Bigfoot is kind of like aliens. They can make you lose time and all that kind of stuff. It's really weird, but time for another show, I guess, right?
Okay. All righty. Well, Alan Thomas, thank you ever so kindly for being here tonight. And
thank you for having me, my brother.
We will be back again. I'll be back on Tuesday night with my SHR Media special report. And next Thursday night, also with Charles Love. He's going to be talking qualified immunity for police and what's happening in the black community and why he is a conservative. Alan Thomas, thank you, sir, for being here tonight. God bless and take care.
Bye, guys. Bye, everyone.
To chew bubble gum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubble.
Yep.
Monsieur!
So, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, thanks for listening to BZ's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show, live and direct right here on the SHR Media Network. I had a great time. Doing politics every show is starting to get a little old, so I may be branching out a bit more. And that's why I particularly appreciate Alan Thomas for having been here tonight and all the other folks who called in. Thanks to everybody for being in chat. Simone, Sergeant Booker, The Alaskan, Callie Bigfoots, Alan Thomas, Whiskey Dale, Ghost Wolf, One Viewer, and all the other people whose names, Jeremy, Callie was on Facebook, and damn it, I can't remember the number of the other people that were on Facebook as well. You heard what's going to be on next week. You know, every day is a conundrum and a blessing. That's how it goes in 2021. So from me to you, everyone, God bless, take care, be safe, have a great weekend. Come back next Tuesday. Thanks.
Everybody quiet down now and get some sleep.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, Mama. Good night, Ben.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, Mama. Good night, Daddy.
Good night, children.
Good night, Daddy. Good night, Elizabeth.
Good night, John Boy. Good night, Jim Bob. Good night, Jim Bob.
Good night, Jim Bob.
What's going on? I was asleep. What's everybody doing?
Good night,
Jim Bob.
Good night, and good luck.